Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Mother's Day Mayhem. Today is Mother's Day, 2026, Sunday, May 10th. You know that Mother's Day was commemorated in the United States in 1887 in Kentucky by a teacher by the name of Mary Towles Sassine. She led her classroom in the observation of the very first Mother's Day holiday celebration, 1887 in Kentucky. All right. And now it's 2026, and we celebrate Mother's Day. Tonight, we're focusing on Nancy Iskander as being the mother of four children. Nancy Iskander, you may remember, was a mother who was out with her family, her husband, and her four children um, at around dusk, around 7 p.m. on September 29th, 2020. They were out getting some exercise together as a family. And count them, two high performance AMG kitted Mercedes Benz sedan race car, all wheel drive, four-wheel drive race cars came flying up Triunfo Canyon Road at about 81 miles per hour. The posted speed limit is 45 miles an hour. Like I said, the sun is setting. It's almost set. It's dark. There are 7 LED streetlights in and around the crash scene. 7. There are 4 within 60 feet of the murder of the two sons, her two eldest children. 2 of 4 children were killed that night before her eyes. On Mother's Day, we celebrate this. It was September 29th, but today on the Juxtaposition channel, it's Mother's Day, and we're celebrating the loss of 2 of her 4 children um, by 2 drunkards who are in race cars, performance race cars that are street legal, but are not legally registered. In the case of Scott Erickson, his car does not have any legal registration or ownership paperwork whatsoever. As far as we know, it's a stolen car off of a car dealership in Arizona, for all we know. That means it's not insured. It's certainly not insured by Scott Erickson. So if you're the defense lawyer who's going to represent Nancy Iskander and her husband Karim, you're not going to get paid a dime from Scott Erickson's insurance company. They're going to pay nothing. So you're not going to get your legal fee. There's not going to be any money for the Iskander family either. Just telling you, I'm a CPA, and that is one of the little details that I would look into before I agreed to take the case. Because every professional attorney, every professional accountant, first thing you want to do is verify how you're going to get paid, the sources and uses of your fee, and that you're going to ask for a retainer in advance. You're going to ask for money in advance, unless you're willing to take the case on contingency. And that means you get half. You'll get half of whatever you get, whatever the judgment is, you get half. Now, getting a judgment isn't the only victory, the only form of victory. Securing a judgment from a jury is one thing, collecting it is another. So again, I'm always looking ahead to, can I collect, and who can I collect from? Who's going to pay me? We have that going on in this case. And you know that kind of analysis that I just described to you of assuming you win the case on consignment, or if you agree to give credit for your fees, which are going to be at least $3 million in law fees to handle this double homicide trial over 8 weeks, plus the prep time. If you give credit, you're still going to need to collect $3 million, and that's the minimum. And how are you going to do it? The Iskander family can't write a check for $3 million. So what about Scott Erickson? Can he? I don't know. What about Rebecca Grossman? She's currently in jail, serving 15 years to life. Uh, that means she's eligible for parole in 7.5 years. She's already served at least 4 years. So that means in 3.5 years, she can either go on house arrest or be released. In theory, she could be released in 4.5 years, which is today, in theory. But for public relations purposes, no parole board is going to parole Rebecca Grossman. She was found guilty of second-degree murder, of reckless abandon. We're talking about malicious injury of two little boys, Mark Iskander, age 11, and his younger brother, Jacob, age 8, who she collided into with the grill of her hot, souped-up Mercedes-Benz AMG, killing them both more or less instantly. Jacob lingered for a few hours and then died. Mark was killed instantly. Mark's the older son. His skateboard was broken into two pieces. But what is lost in this case is Scott Erickson, who is dominantly responsible for this crash. It's a miracle. It's just a complete lucky break for Scott Erickson, a DUI driver who's been cited for DUI before, 11 years earlier, had the charges dropped miraculously. Is that he's a known drunkard. He's a known drinker who drinks alone by himself, and he is known for drinking and driving. That's confirmed. And he's the lead out man for this. And Rebecca, his married girlfriend, she's 3 seconds behind him, which is 300 feet. She's 300 feet in arrears of his bumper. And he's obscuring her view because you're entering a slight left-hand corner as you approach Saddle Mountain Drive on Triunfo Canyon Road. There is 4 LED streetlights there. It is well illuminated, despite that it is 7:10 p.m. It's nearly pitch dark, but it's dusk. It's technically still dusk on September 29th, 2020. And there's Scott Erickson in an unregistered car that he doesn't own, that's uninsured. He's traveling around 81 miles an hour, and he cuts right in front of Nancy Iskander and her youngest son, Zachary, age 5, and just narrowly misses her, but may have clipped Zachary's scooter because it appears through forensics that Scott Erickson's chrome frame of his fog lamp, his left fog lamp, was broken and left at the crash scene. We have a lot of evidence collection problems in this case, I guess you know, if you watched my video. So it was never collected, and nor was it photographed. But it was logged by Sheriff's Deputy Mejia, logged a chrome fog lamp frame that he found on the road, on Triunfo Canyon Road. Okay. Now you know that Rebecca's Mercedes doesn't have a chrome fog lamp frame. She's driving a 2018 model. Scott's in a 2016 model of the same car, the GL series and GLC series high performance car. These cars start at $177,000 out the door and can go up to $250,000 if you upgrade to the V8. But it's about a $200,000 car, and we're talking about 2 of them. In the case of Scott, he's driving a potentially stolen car that was taken off a dealership lot in Arizona 8 years ago, and he's driving it around uninsured. And he put the license plates from his 2007 Mercedes SUV, black. He's taken the license plates from there, cold plating is what it's called, and then transferred the plates onto the unregistered car, which is going to be like $2,500 a year to pay in registration fees. He's been driving this car around for years, unregistered, uninsured, and he's been drunk driving it. And finally, the major league steroid gods catch up with him, but he narrowly avoids killing anyone. But 3 seconds later, his drunken girlfriend, impaired girlfriend, Rebecca, who's had at least 3 margaritas, she crashes into Mark and Jacob Iskander, more or less killing them instantly. Got it? So, do you think that Scott Erickson bears any responsibility for this. You do know that despite the very ineffective, incomplete sheriff's investigation detective work, Scott Erickson was charged with misdemeanor reckless driving. That means there were dozens of conversations with Scott or his lawyers and or his agent, which would include people that you should know, like Jeff Boris is his sporting agent and attorney, and his cohort, Frankie J. Longo, another Malibu attorney. Jeff Boris has a home in Malibu, but he has other homes throughout the United States. He represents Barry Bonds, Jose Canseco, Kurt Schilling, Bobby Bonilla, Tim Lincecum, formerly of pitcher for the San Francisco Giants, and he, of course, represents Scott Erickson, too. And this is not his first rodeo. He's dealt with Scott Erickson in a domestic violence 9/11 call, and he's dealt with him in a DUI drunk driving 11 years ago. And all of those charges were dropped. They were all dropped. So on paper, Scott Erickson is squeaky clean, right? But Jeffrey Boris knows he's not. He's dealt with high-speed crashes for Jose Canseco, dealt with a domestic abuse issue with Barry Bonds. He's dealt with all of these things with his clients that he represents to get paid money for himself, of course. He books them for conventions and TV commercials or movie cameos, etc. All right, so what you should know is that we have automobile parts left at the scene, just dozens and dozens of them, and they were not collected and nor were they ever photographed. And it is required that they photograph them. It is not required that you collect them in a traffic accident. However, when it's a double homicide, you might want to collect them anyway and plastic bag them. That was not done. In addition, the first highest ranking deputy on the scene was Travis Kelly. He's a sergeant for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department out of the Lost Hills substation. If you've been following my videos over the years, you know that the Lost Hills substation in Los Angeles is corrupt, okay, as all the substations are, very corrupt. And there's many, many murders and mysterious deaths occur in and around the Lost Hills area. We have porn stars driving off the road mysteriously. We have scientists from Irvine, California, shot through their tent next to their daughter, killed mysteriously at 3 o'clock in the morning. We have the mysterious helicopter crash of Kobe Bryant. We have the mysterious death of Priscilla Presley. We have the murder of Jose Menendez, who was building a home near the Lost Hills substation in Hidden Hills. Yes, where the Kardashians live, Will Smith lives, where Peter Grossman and Rebecca live, where Scott Erickson has a home, where Jose Menendez was going to live before he got murdered, shot 13 times with a shotgun. This is where Francis Gary Powers was mysteriously killed in his helicopter, where Terry Kath was shot to death by a 9mm. Terry Kath, the guitarist for Chicago Transit Authority, killed in Woodland Hills, right near, serviced by the Lost Hills Sheriff's deputies at the substation there. This is where Charlie Manson lived, Frank Sinatra lived, Ronald Reagan lived in Chatworth, again serviced by the Lost Hills substation. The Spawn Ranch, Box Canyon, the Manson family, all under the tutelage of the Lost Hills substation. So, are you surprised there could be corruption in this case? I'm not. It's pretty standard. And the corruption in this case is that Scott Erickson was completely exempted from the criminal trial, despite the fact that we have eyewitnesses that put him there, that he's guilty of cold plating, which is a felony crime, that he lied to the detective, David Hewelson. He told him he was driving his 2007 ML450 black SUV as a bald-faced lie. He was driving a black GLC AMG souped up 2016, 577 horsepower twin turbo, performance kit suspension, racing bucket seats, souped up motor, twin turbos. and he was going at least 81 miles per hour. And you know that Detective David H. Yulson did the interview with him 9 days after the incident by telephone. He didn't even drive over to find him. He didn't drive over to meet with him personally. He didn't inspect any of his cars. And we know he has at least two cars. The car that he was driving the night of the murder, and Detective David Hulson didn't ever see that car, nor did he see the ML 450 SUV 2007. He didn't see that car either. He asked Scott Erickson if he'd been drinking, and Scott said he had one regular margarita. That's a bald-faced lie. Scott Erickson was drinking from at least 2 p.m. in the afternoon over at Stonehouse, which is a bar which does serve food. But he was at the bar with the bartender drinking alone by himself, drinking beer at the bar. On this Tuesday, this presidential debate Tuesday afternoon, between 2 and 5, which is 3 hours, he was at Stonehouse drinking beer. He was joined by a friend of his who's also a steroid baseball player and coach of the Oak Christian Academy nearby in Calabasas, Royce Clayton. And Royce Clayton spent 90 minutes drinking with Scott Erickson at the bar at Stonehouse, where it was decided that this drinking party, which would have consumed a minimum of 6 beers apiece, continued to Julio's Agave Grill, which is about a half a block away, but does require you get in your car and you drive about 500 yards to a different parking lot. And it's funny that Royce Clayton, who was in a different car, he doesn't remember seeing which car Scott Erickson was driving. He never saw where he parked and he didn't see his car. If you believe that, which I don't believe that. I don't believe Royce Clayton. I think he's a buddy pal. It's like a Kato Kalin is to O.J. Simpson, like Robert Kardashian is to O.J. Simpson. Royce Clayton is to Scott Erickson. They have a 30-year relationship that is based on transactions and doing favors for each other. They both take steroids. They both lie. They both engage in a filthy, dirty sport called Major League Baseball, and they've known each other for 30 years. They played 17 years in the Major League Baseball in the case of Royce, and 15 years in the case of Scott Erickson. But he does have a World Series ring, and he pitched in a winning World Series game. So he has the higher status of the two, and they're buds, and they cover for each other, including alibying each other. And one of the best ways to do that is say that, use the Sergeant Schultz defense. I see nothing. I hear nothing. I know nothing. You have that going on in this case every which way, even with the sheriff's deputies to the sergeants. And the sergeants are Travis Kelly. He's the most legitimate person in the case. He was the first sergeant to arrive at the scene. Then we have David Hulson. He's the detective who arrived. He can't remember, but it was at least 1 hour after the accident when the boys had been taken away. And so too had Rebecca Grossman. She was getting her blood removed at the same hospital that Jacob Iskander was taken to. Anyway, then we have the arrival on the scene of Sergeant Scott Sheen. He de facto becomes the lead person at the crime scene, but again, after the Rebecca's been taken to the hospital, after the Mark Iskander has been taken to the coroner, and after Jacob has been taken to the hospital. Sean Sheen arrives, spelled Shean. Sean Sheen. Pardon me, Scott Sheen. It couldn't be more confusing, right? I think his name is Scott Sheen, not to be confused with Scott Erickson, who fled the scene, right? He fled the scene, then he jogged back and he observed from the bushes for an unknown amount of time, at least a half an hour. I've heard that reports that he was there for 3 hours. I don't believe that Scott Erickson lurked in the bushes for 3 hours while he's drunk. I believe he probably spent a half an hour, and once he saw his girlfriend get handcuffed and put into Deputy Mejia's squad car, that he then went back to the home where he confronted Rebecca Grossman's 16-year-old daughter, asking her, "Why did your mother stop? Why did your mother stop?" Implying, why didn't she flee the scene like I did? And of course, the answer is her airbag deployed when she clobbered the two kids in the crosswalk, the two kids being Mark, age 11, and Jacob, age 8. She crashed into them. The airbag deployed, and simultaneously with that, the Mercedes-Benz technology turns off the motor by cutting off the fuel so that your car gradually is disabled and it's going uphill, a steep hill. It's about a 7% grade uphill, and it just glides to a stop. And Rebecca turned to the gutter and parked it on the right side of the number 2 lane. That's why she didn't stop. She would have fled the scene, but her Mercedes technology prevented her from leaving the scene. Do you understand what I'm saying? Anyway, in the coming weeks, there must have been dozens of conversations between Scott Erickson's agent, Jeff Boris, and his attorney, Frankie J. Longo of Malibu, with the district attorney's office concerning the charging or lack of charging for their client, Scott Erickson. And it was agreed that if Scott would do a teenage driver public safety, public service advisory advert, PSA, they would drop the misdemeanor reckless driving charges. So that was agreed to. And Scott Erickson produced a 10-minute safety driving video and was not included in the criminal case, which was focused on Rebecca Grossman, the estranged wife of Peter Grossman, who you may remember lied about the Ann Heche fiery car crash and announced Ann Heche's death at the West Hills Hospital, where Peter Grossman is not on the payroll. He does have privileges as a plastic surgery to perform at the West Hills Acute Care Hospital, but he does not, he's not a department head, he's not in charge of a burn unit. That was all made up for the Ann Heche fiery car crash. So you have that going on here. You should know that the district attorney of Los Angeles at the time of all of this uh, is a puppet. They're all puppets. Remember, we had Gil Garcetti. He was in charge when the O.J. Simpson murders happened, right? Remember Gil Garcetti? And then we had Ethel Younger was the district attorney when we had the Sharon Tate murder, and we had the Manson trial. Ethel Younger, who went on to become the Attorney General of California after the conviction of the Manson family, sending them all off to the gas chamber. Well, we have the district attorney in play at the time of the Iskander boys' murder, and her name is Jackie Lacey, Jacqueline Phillips Lacey, born February 27th, 1957. She's a politician, and she served as district attorney from December 2012 through December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, 2021, 2020. So, right after this case was being brought to trial, Jackie Lacey fled the scene just like Scott Erickson did, right? Jackie Lacey didn't want nothing to do with this case. She went away on Pearl Harbor Day, 2020, and I told you the accident was on September 29, 2020. So we had October and November. 2 months went by, and Jackie Phillips Lacey fled the scene. And she was replaced by another corrupt puppet, um, George Casson, succeeded by George Casson, Cascon. So George Cascon was presiding in the corrupt district attorney office of Los Angeles, while the corrupt sheriff's department failed to collect any of the car parts in the debris field. And we have Detective David Hulson having amnesia. He doesn't remember anything. he's either a bald-faced liar or he has senile dementia or he's an idiot. And I think he's not an idiot. I do think he may have senile dementia, though. I really do. I really do. He doesn't show a lot of respect for the Iskander family loss. When he's deposed on his Zoom cameras, he has his dog playing in the background, or he's at the swimming pool in his backyard in Kentucky. And I think that shows a tremendous contempt for justice. And I would personally charge, I'd have the Committee of Public Safety charge retired David H. Hulson with felony obstruction of justice. He's involved in the concealment of Scott Erickson and and for shameful detective work. But in any case, he is very aware that a deal was struck with the district attorney's office to drop the reckless driving charges. And I don't believe much of what David Hulson says on his Zoom meetings. Mostly says, I don't know. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. Yeah, it was 5.5 years ago. You have the file. You can read your notes. Is that your signature on the report? You should know that Detective David Hurlson did interview at least 5 people in connection with the murder of the two Iskander boys. He first interviewed Rebecca Grossman, right? Then he interviewed the next day Pamela Curry at 11:40 a.m. on October 1st. Then he next interviewed by he interviewed Susan Manners on October 5th at 3:20 p.m. She lives in and around the neighborhood of the crash scene, which is Saddle Mountain Drive and Triunfo Canyon Road. Susan Manners, he interviewed her. Then he called Scott Erickson by telephone on October 8th, and he completed a 2-page supplement. I believe that he didn't sign it. He didn't sign that. I believe it's more like a 4 or 5 or 6 page supplement, and they've deleted many of the things that Scott Erickson told Detective David Hulson. That's me. I believe it's more than 2 pages, but officially it's 2 pages, and Detective David Hulson did not sign either one of the 2 pages where he took notes. This conversation was recorded, and there's now a written transcript, which the clueless, hapless Detective Hulson never before read the transcript of his conversation, where he asked him, did you drink anything? Yes, one margarita, regular size. What car were you driving? Oh, my Mercedes-Benz 2007 SUV. Were you speeding? What speed would you estimate you were traveling? 50 miles an hour. All 3 of those answers are bald-faced lies. In other words, I'm not sure Scott Erickson answered truthfully to any question that Detective David Hulson asked him. And David Hulson doesn't seem to be slightly concerned about that at all. But he knows more than he's saying, right? Because somehow the district attorney decided to charge Scott Erickson with reckless driving, misdemeanor. But you couldn't tell that from the interview that Detective David Hulson made. You can't justify a reckless driving charge based on that interview. You'd have to corroborate it with witnesses, like Pamela Curry and he interviewed Chris Morgensen on December 1st at noontime. And guess what? Pamela Curry, Chris Morgensen, and Susan Manners, they corroborated that Scott Erickson was driving at a high rate of speed through the crosswalk whilst the Iskander family was crossing at 7:10 p.m. And it's from that testimony, those 3 witnesses, that the district attorney decided to charge reckless driving of Scott Erickson. But you'd never know that listening to the depositions, 2 different depositions that David Iskander gave recently last year in 2025. One interview he gave at on June 18th from his inside of his home with his dog jumping around his couch behind him and on his lap, which I thought was extremely unprofessional of Detective David Hurlson. And then on November 26th, he was deposed by a second defense lawyer, by Zoom in his backyard next to a swimming pool. And again, very cavalier, dismissive attitude, very unprofessional attitude. But I was astonished and yet not surprised because the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department at the level of sergeant and above is known to be intensely corrupt. And that would be true in my own county as well. And this would be true in San Francisco County, where Kamala Harris was the district attorney. All counties are corrupt. And at the low level, the deputy level, they're misguided. They don't know how anything works, right? They're at the low levels. They barely get out of high school with a C average. So they're pretty easy to control. All right. So anyway, we have exhibition of speed. We have racing. We have a speed contest going on here. And we have a history of both Rebecca Grossman being pulled over for 93 miles an hour, then given a break at 80. She was written up for 80 when she was, which radar gun said she was 93. By the way, 93 is impounding your vehicle and having to go to driver's training school. So when you knock it down to 80, you just pay the fine and you don't have to go to driver's training or have your car impounded. Okay, I did mention that Rebecca's car is leased by her husband, the plastic surgeon, Peter Grossman. So she doesn't own the car. The 2018 souped up AMG sports car, she doesn't own it. She leases it. And in the case of Scott Erickson, he doesn't own it. He doesn't lease it. He doesn't register it. He's just driving a stolen car. Or a car that went missing 8 years ago somewhere in Arizona. It went missing. But he drives that car to Las Vegas. He drives that car to Reno, Nevada. He drives that car to Carmel, Pebble Beach. He drives that car in and around Los Angeles County from the airport to Playa del Mar to Westlake Village to Triunfo Canyon Road through crosswalks at 81 miles an hour. I'm just telling you the way it is. That's why you come to the Juxtaposition channel. So circling back here to Mother's Day, Nancy Iskander, she has four children. She has Mark and Jacob, age 11 and 8. They were killed. What apparently looks like Rebecca Grossman killed them. However, it's possible that Scott Erickson clipped the scooter of Zachary, possibly, because it was Nancy Iskander who was leading, like a ducklings, like the ducklings across the crosswalk. And Nancy was on rollerblades and she's holding the hand of her son, Zachary, age 5. And his scooter, I think, got clipped by someone. And I'm going to say that someone was Scott Erickson. And they dove into the sidewalk to escape the mayhem. And then her two older boys, Mark and Jacob, were clobbered by Rebecca at approximately 81 miles per hour. Now, the telemetry data says that she was going 73 miles an hour when the airbag deployed. But remember, first you have to hit the kids, then the airbag deploys. And that's going to scrub some speed off when you crash into two human beings. So she's going to take her foot off the throttle. She was 98% full throttle when she entered the crosswalk. And then she backed off when she hit something. And then the airbag telemetry data reported that she was going 73. But it's on a hill, and she took her foot off the accelerator for a brief moment. She put it back on, though, until the car ran out of fuel and was disabled through the computer technology that is the Mercedes-Benz. Violet, age 1, again was on the west sidewalk in a stroller being pushed by her father, Karim. So they completely avoided the danger. You should know that both Karim and Nancy are employees of Amgen Corporation in Thousand Oaks at the world headquarters. They're both in bioscience, life science, human augmentation business. This is depressing to me to have to tell you this, but there's karma, and karma is a biatch, and they're in the human augmentation business. In terms of Karim, he's a vice president officer of Amgen. Amgen is the provider of most blood doping for all Olympic athletes in soccer, World Club soccer, and tennis, and every Olympic sport, and NFL football and baseball. Amgen Corporation provides drugs which all athletes use from high school on. From high school on, they use life sciences products that could have been developed by Nancy Iskander, who went to an institute over at Scripps College, where Ronald Rettenhauer went to school over there at Claremont Colleges. So too did Nancy Iskander, and she got a degree in biology and life sciences. And she's in research development and works with precision medicine in hospitals. and her husband is a vice president of the Oncology Services Department division at Amgen. So I don't agree with that, and they should be fired, and I believe the company should be shuttered and shut down, and Amgen should go away. But they had two of their four children murdered that night on September 29, 2020. Is that karma? I don't know. I'm just telling you. It's Mother's Day. We're celebrating that she's a mother. She still has two children. She has Zachary and Violet. She has a son and a daughter. And but she lost her two oldest sons, and it's a terrific tragedy. And it's a double tragedy that the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office is actively involved in concealing Scott Erickson, a Major League Baseball player in the Roman circuses, which are distracting us all from human augmentation, that they're protecting him. He's being protected. And my attention now turns to Brian Panesh, who is the Irish lawyer and managing founding partner of Panesh Shea and Revapati in Los Angeles on Santa Monica Boulevard. He is the lead attorney. He's 68 years old. He's done the math. He knows where he's going to get paid. He already knows how and how much approximately he's going to get paid. And the money source is really on the side of Major League Baseball and their corporate sponsors. So I would think that Brian Panesh understands, without having to been told, that the best way to get paid in this case is to make it a duplication of the criminal case where we blame Rebecca Grossman, blame her, and exclude Scott Erickson because he didn't kill anyone, right? And it's true. It doesn't look like Scott Erickson killed anyone. It's a miracle that he didn't. I mean, it's a matter of milliseconds that he didn't. But he is involved in this crash, and he definitely obscured the view of Rebecca, who had had a grand total of 3 margaritas. In the case of Scott, I'm going to guess he had 4 margaritas and a minimum of 6 beers. That's 10 drinks over 4 hours. You got that? Now he's a drunk, and he can handle a lot of alcohol. He's 6'4", 245 pounds. It takes a lot for Scott Erickson to fall off the mound, right, in Major League pitching. So that's my video for today. It's disturbing. It might make you want to have a Bloody Mary, right? Or maybe a Shirley Temple, because this is a drunk driving story. Both drivers were impaired, meaning that they were drunk. Both drivers were doing almost double the speed limit, which is a felony crime unto itself. It's reckless disregard. It's reckless abandonment, contempt for morality. It's a criminal act of drunkenness. It's a criminal act of malicious injury. It's reckless abandonment, and it's a speed contest pursuit, high speed pursuit. And the most incriminating quotation of all is the testimony of Alexis Grossman, age 16 at the time of the murders of the 2 boys. She said that Scott Erickson looked at her and said, "You never saw me here. I was never here. You never saw me. And if you tell anyone that I was here, I will ruin you and your family." But Alexis has been recorded on deposition of telling us what Scott Erickson said. The only thing missing is Scott Erickson himself. He's never had to show his face in the courtroom because he's never been charged, and he has yet to show his face in the courtroom in the civil case. And we have 2 weeks passed out of a 6 to 8 week trial. And so far, his lawyer has promised that Scott Erickson is going to take the stand and tell you that he was driving 50 miles per hour and he saw the boys and he swerved to avoid them. But I don't believe that's going to happen. I don't believe that's going to happen because that's just going to incriminate Scott Erickson in the number of lies that he's told to the sheriff's department, which are very easy to prove. Thanks everyone for listening. Do like and share my videos because I am heavily shadow banned. Bye now.